after the service. Later in our service, we will pass the collection plate, but for now, I'll take a moment to remind you about our February Share the Plate recipient. Each Sunday, our church gives away half the money received in the collection plate to a nonprofit organization that shares our UU values. Our Share the Plate recipient for the month of February is Reading Power, people organized to welcome immigrants and refugees. After the fall of Afghanistan in 2021, Reading Power came together to welcome a family who had fled through the chaos at the Kabul airport. Thanks to support from Reading Power, the family is now well on their way to living independently, and Reading Power has expanded to provide assistance to another Afghan family, working together to provide ESL tutoring, financial support, and transportation assistance. Reading Power is an all-volunteer group. Some of the volunteers are sitting with us here right this moment. And every penny collected is used for refugee support. Please give generously to our Share the Plate offering, either in person or online, to support both Reading Power and the mission of UUCR. If you are watching this service online during its initial broadcast at 10 a.m. on February 12th, please join us after service for conversation via Zoom hosted by David Adamson. Thank you, David. If you are attending in person, please join us in Fellowship Hall following the service for social hour. On behalf of all the staff and the volunteers involved in today's worship, I want to thank you for gathering with us this morning. You belong here, maybe just for the next hour, but we hope for longer. You belong here, and we are glad that you're joining us today.
Good morning. Glad to see those of you here, and hopefully there's people at home, particularly on Super Bowl Sunday. When I talked to Laura back in November about putting this program on, and I suggested February 12th, I didn't realize it would be Super Bowl Sunday. So, my name is Tom Model, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. And I've been a member of UUCR for about 50 years, a Unitarian for about 60, and really Unitarian in my outlooks, beliefs, and personal philosophy all my life. The framework that came together for today's program was really inspired by the monthly themes that Reverend Laura used in her sermons since becoming our minister in September. Belonging, courage, change, wonder, finding our center, and for this month, love. In particular, I began thinking about why we meet here at UUCR on Sundays and who we are, both as a congregation and as individuals. And that led me to the theme for today's service and its title, Why We Meet and Who We Are. What follows this morning reflects my thoughts and perspectives on these two questions. What's really important is, what are yours? I shouldn't have used a paperclip. The themes Reverend Laura has used over these last months come from the UU Soul Matters Network that highlights the idea that no one can do church alone. I believe this idea speaks directly to the history and the strength of this congregation and church as I've come to know it. And I hope the words, ideas, and stories in today's services will resonate with you in various ways and your feelings and thoughts about our church. I also hope that today's service conveys why we, together with our minister and wonderful staff, can live out that idea that no one can do church alone. Over my lifetime, I've learned the hard way that words can convey very different ideas and feelings to each individual. And today's words to ponder, which are at the beginning of your service, spirituality, soul, sanctuary, and togetherness, for me, are kind of, if you allow me the metaphor, philosophical poles for my beliefs tent. These are my own personal tent poles, have meaning to me. But as I've looked up the meaning of these words to other individuals and other organizations, I found that my particular meaning associated with these words were really manufactured by Aristotle a long, long time ago. In the conversation circles and survey conducted last year as part of our church's ongoing strategic planning process, many of you said that spiritual growth, sense of community, and togetherness were extremely important to you and your experience at UUCR as congregants. So this morning, let's keep these words to ponder in mind, along with the word love, our February services theme, as we move on to explore why we meet and who we are.
As we light our chalice this morning, with Unitarian Universalists all over the globe, I invite you to call into your heart the flame you kindle this morning. Oh, Tom, the chalice.
I'm not used to doing this.
The flame you kindle this morning, the flame of truth, of community, of commitment to love and to justice. Please join me in reciting our chalice lighting words, which are printed in our order of service. In the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment, we gather this day. May the flame we now kindle be to us a symbol of the holiness we seek. Now, I'm happy to invite anyone up who'd like to join me for the children's affirmation. Lucian, you want to come on up, dude? Awesome. I mean, I can do it on my own. Yeah, come on up. Come on up, friends. All right, park yourselves right here. All right, so these words are also printed in your order of service, but I will say them out loud as well. We are Unitarian, Universalists, the Church of the open mind, the loving heart, and the helping hands. Thanks, guys. Please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing hymn 1028 in the Teal hymnal, The Fire of Commitment. Okay. Now is the most fun time in the service, for me at least, the time when I get to invite all the children and all the children at heart, any adults that want to join us, to come on up to the front. So come on up, find a space that feels good to you. Don't worry if you have to wiggle a little bit, that's okay. Just don't step on anybody, okay? Your stuff's right in here. Ooh, let me grab my thing. Gotta grab my little thing. That's your bag. Your broken thing, and that's your script.
Is this on?
You just have to flip it on.
There? Okay.
Yep. Okay. Do all of you know that every month here at church we pick a theme to talk about? Does anyone know that? Well, does anyone know what our theme this month is? I feel like Gavin might. What is coming up this week? Valentine's Day. So our theme this month is love. And I am super excited to talk about love and Valentine's Day because I wanted to show you this really cool bowl that I have. It's really special. It's glass and handmade, and every Valentine's Day I like to put it out with some candies to share. Does anyone here have something special that you like to share at Valentine's Day or other times? Lucian?
Well, usually on Valentine's Day, I give out cards to my friends and family.
Do you make them yourself? Or do you go to the store and buy them?
Sometimes I make them. Usually I make them myself.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Have you planned them out for this year?
No. Kind of.
You've got your idea, you just haven't executed yet? Yeah, I hear ya. Ian is working on his at home. Anyone else? Something special you like to share this time of year?
Every time I go to school on Valentine's Day, every day, or every year that Valentine's Day is in school, you go around the whole classroom and you give out cards or gifts to people in your class.
Okay, so Gavin's sharing also in his class. They give out cards and gifts. Are you excited about that? Yeah, it's pretty fun. So I also invited Astrid to come and share something special that she loves, a bowl.
Well, I was so excited to show you this bowl, but it broke on the way here this morning, and now I'm feeling upset. Could we try to fix it?
Oh no, Astrid, that's terrible, but I didn't break the bowl.
I know you didn't break it, but could you help me fix it anyways?
Well, you mean help you fix it even though I didn't break it? I just want everyone to know, though, that I'm a good person and I don't go around breaking bowls, and I didn't break your bowl.
But it's important to me that we figure out how to fix this bowl because it means a lot to me.
Okay, well, I see that it means something to you. So should we try to help Astrid fix the bowl? Yeah. Does anyone have any ideas about how to fix the bowl? Lucian?
We could get super glue or something, and
Super glue.
Good idea.
Super glue. Lucian says super glue.
together.
Tape it. Lucian, you're full of ideas. I like your can-do attitude. Does anyone else have any ideas about how they'd like to fix it?
I do.
Jonah, what's your idea for fixing? Glue and then use tape on top of the glue, so really double it up. I like it. Maybe we could use some sort of special cement. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you have an idea, Lucian?
Or we could harden clay.
Oh, that's a good
Ooh.
idea.
Wet and clay, and then stick it.
Okay, so we could use clay to repair it because it's made out of clay. That's a good observation, Lucian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have an idea too. It's called kintsugi. It's the ancient Japanese art of repairing broken pottery and ceramics. Gold is used to highlight the beauty and the imperfections that remain when a broken item has been repaired.
See, what do you think? It's pretty cool. So what I'm learning is that the point of kintsugi isn't to hide the broken parts, right?
That's right. The gold reminds us all and whoever uses the bowl over and over that something that was once broken is whole again and has a different beauty.
So that sounds like something that would work with other things when other things break too.
What kinds of things?
I don't know, like maybe relationships or friendships. Sometimes when we hurt each other's feelings, it's like the thread between us breaks. And as Unitarian Universalists, we try not to ignore when that thread breaks. We try to rebuild the relationship so that it's stronger and more beautiful than it was before.
I agree. The work of healing is all of our jobs, no matter how big or small we are. And when we repair our mistakes with love and with our covenant, we remember that our relationships are more beautiful once we have acknowledged hurt, asked for forgiveness, corrected our mistakes, and made a sacred promise to do better in the future.
Yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think this is super beautiful with the gold? Yeah, sometimes it's even more beautiful than before it was broken. So while all of you go to your religious education classes down in Community Hall today, I invite everyone here to reflect on how, as a community, we are all facing small and large breaks. So I just watched a documentary on Netflix called Stutz. Phil Stutz, I highly recommend it. It's amazing. But one thing that he said that really struck me is that failure, weakness, and vulnerability is like a connector. It connects you to the rest of the world because what you're doing is giving out a signal to the world that says, I need you because I can't do this by myself. How can we, as a community, and each one of us, do that work and repair things so that what we're left with afterwards is actually more beautiful, something new and more beautiful? So now, as we do every week, we'll sing the children off to their religious education classes. The words to the song are in your order of service. So now we're at the candles of community, peace, and justice. Each week, we take time during our service to light our candles of community, peace, and justice. We light our red candle of community to signify our interconnection. Wherever you are in time and space, newcomer or longtime member, here in the sanctuary or joining us virtually, we light this candle holding you in love. May this light welcome and hold you, reminding you that your presence is needed in this community. As we light this candle, I invite you to speak aloud the name or names of people who are on your mind and in your heart today to bring them fully into this space. Ryan, Ian, William. We light our blue candle of peace for all the places worldwide where people live with the threat of war and violence. This week, we also hold in our hearts all of the veterans and all who are serving in foreign wars right now, and we hold those who are experiencing war as well. We send love to those who remember their service, and we send love to folks who are struggling. And we hold in our hearts everyone who faces war and violence. And last, we light our yellow candle of justice. May all people everywhere live their lives in freedom, and may we each do our part in the work for justice and liberation for all in our global community. As we recommit ourselves to the work of love and justice, may we each voice this commitment by saying, Amen. Amen.
I do the prayer. Yeah. As prayer today, I'd like to offer these thoughts from the poets Rumi and Khalil Gibran. From Rumi, his poem Spirituality and Soul. I have been a seeker, and I still am. But I stopped asking the books and the stars. I started listening to the teaching of my soul. And from Khalil Gibran, his poem Sanctuary and Togetherness. But let there be space in your togetherness, and let the winds of the heavens dance between you. Love one another, but not make a bond of love. Let it rather be a moving sea between the shores of your souls. And now we invite you to remain seated and join the choir in singing the Spirit of Life. The words are in your order of service, and we'll do this twice.
If you have a joy or a sorrow you would like to honor through lighting a silent candle, you are invited to come forward now. Please remember that if you wish to remain off camera, you may light a candle at the stand closest to Austin Transept. Thanks.
The word God, considered as verb and process, not entity, fits these words from Khalil Gibran's poem On Religion, which perfectly capture my personal perspectives. And an old priest said, "Speak to us of religion." And he said, "Have I spoken this day of aught else? Is not religion all deeds and all reflection? And that which is neither deed nor reflection, but a wonder and a surprise ever springing in the soul, even while the hand hew the stone or tend the loom. Who can separate his faith from his actions, or his belief from his occupations? Who can spread his hours before him, saying, this for God and this for myself, this for my soul and this other for my body? All our hours are wings that beat through space from self to self. He who wears his morality but as his best garment were better naked. The wind and the sun will tear no holes in his skin. And he who defines his conduct by ethics imprisons his songbird in a cage. The freest song comes not through bars and wires. And he to whom worshiping is a window to open but also to shut has not yet visited the house of his soul, whose windows are from dawn to dawn. Your daily life is your temple and your religion. Whenever you enter into it, take with you your all. Take the plow and the forge and the mallet and the lute, the things you have fashioned in necessity or for delight. And in reverie, you cannot rise above your achievements nor fall lower than your failures. And take with you all men, for in adoration you cannot fly higher than their hopes, nor humble yourself lower than their despair. And if you would know God, be not therefore a solver of riddles. Rather look about you, and you shall see him playing with your children. And look into space, you shall see him walking in the cloud, outstretching his arms in the lightning and descending in rain. You shall see him smiling in flowers, then rising and waving his hands in trees. Choir. Trevor. So this part of the service is reflections on why we meet and who we are. Since joining in September, Reverend Laura has provided us with many opportunities to think about themes that are essential to who we are as individuals and why we meet as a church. This month, we're exploring the meanings of the word love, which I believe is central to thinking about the words to ponder: spirituality, the soul, sanctuary, and togetherness. In 2023, we're striving to move on from a very difficult time in the period of our church. We're emerging from a multi-year pandemic crisis that blocked our opportunities to come together on Sundays, hampering our learning and thinking about life beyond what's required or imposed on us in everyday life. And we've also been working our way through a difficult period in our church's ministerial leadership history. The monthly themes that Reverend Laura asked us to consider over the last several months have been, for me, reassuring, uplifting, and extremely helpful in thinking about our history, the values we share, and our future as a church. In today's opening words, I referenced the UU Soul Matters Network and the theme, "No one can do church alone." So I guess I'm asking, let's be here together today to think about UUCR as our spiritual, intellectual, and cultural home, and kind of the well of comfort and enlightenment for us in our daily lives. To this end, Suzanne Sullivan and Alec and Kevin Keeling will give us their stories and perspectives as UUs and as members of this congregation, and then I'll close with my stories. So Suzanne, will you start with yours, and Alec and Kevin will follow.
Tall people, move this up. All right, I feel just the smallest bit silly climbing up here to talk to you because I might be the least spiritual person you might ever encounter. I am a practical, down-to-earth, matter-of-fact person, and I have always been. It's possible that my role here is to point out that there are different reasons for people to come to church. I will say that I have never sought spiritual guidance from anybody. I'm an agnostic. I believe in what I can see. I have never seen anything to suggest that there is a supreme being out there who has any interest whatever in human affairs. Humans bring misery and pain and trouble to each other without any help from anyone else. People also bring joy, comfort, love to others where they can. So I guess I believe in the power of people. And I became aware of the Unitarian Universalists way back in the early 1970s when my college boyfriend and I were a couple of long-haired kids who decided that we wanted to get married, of all things. And we couldn't find anybody who would do it. We were two long-haired kids. We wanted an outdoor hippie wedding in the Arnold Arboretum. We had two different orders of Catholic priests and one campus chaplain all say to us, "You don't have a chance. The statistics are against you. This wedding won't work, and we won't do it." And then there was this nice young man at the Arlington Street Unitarian Universalist Church who said, "Sure." And we got married. That was 1 point for the UUs. And I will add here that it poured rain on the wedding day. And was that God passing judgment on us? No, it was just one of those things. We actually got married inside the church because it was raining, and it was fine. Then we got along just fine without any church for another 10, 11 years until we decided that we really did want a family. Pregnancy was not happening, so the plan was that we would adopt children from a foreign country. That's all that you could do in those days. And we went looking for a church where kids who were different might fit in. And at the encouragement of my wonderful, wonderful primary care physician, Joyce Adamson, who had been singing the praises of her church that had sponsored a Laotian family in recent years, we came here to UUCR. We went to one coffee hour, which at that time was full of families with multiracial adopted children from all around the world, and John and I were hooked. We said, this is the place for us. The children began to come. In the end, the children did turn out to be biologically ours by some strange thing. Was that God answering prayers? No, that was just one of those things too. But our 4 kids did turn out to be different, often challenging, sometimes in good ways, and the church was supportive and helpful as they grew. We had one particularly headstrong daughter who was infamous as a preschooler for teaching bad words to everybody that she encountered. And when she was in high school, thank you to the excellent sexuality education that kids here get through the Our Whole Lives program, she became the go-to person in her high school group for clear, accurate answers on matters sexual. I was proud of her then, and now she's a social worker and she's still setting people straight. I will say, well, here's a really old story. When the oldest of our 4 children was then 8 years old, he did manage to ride a brand new bicycle into an intersection and broadside a passing car, and then spent 5 very, very long weeks in Children's Hospital in Boston. At the time, I stayed home with kids, and John, still the husband, made his living traveling and was home only on weekends. And this church came through for us. They provided rides in and out of the city, and they sent countless meals, mostly chicken fingers and spaghetti, because that's what the other kids ate, for a long time. I was thrilled with them, and my wonderful Irish Catholic mother-in-law, who had not been keen on the church, owned up that her very large Catholic parish could never have done for us what this little bitty church did, and that was the end of all of her criticisms of our strange and peculiar church. Now, I did kind of figure after that the church might let me pay them back, and that was right. By the end of that year, I was both chairing the Religious Education Committee and running the church fair. But you know, that was okay with me. I understand work. It was good work. Work is how we get things done in the world. Our children survived some challenging years here. They got great educations. The church has helped us in many, many other different ways. I will point out that Bud Fisher, now long gone, was the first person to show to me that you could approach end-of-life issues with grace and courage. Bill Grace reinforced that lesson for me, and Ruth Goldberg is cementing it all over again right now. I will say that David and Joyce Adamson and then Montserrat Michelman showed us how you could face true tragedy with grace and courage. I will say that the Getz family, with their house full of little tots and their grandmother recuperating from a stroke, are showing me right now how you find joy in the midst of daunting challenges. I still miss Jamie Maughan, who introduced many of us to Bread and Roses and who showed us that there were lots of ways that we could give back and be useful in the world. People here at church introduced me to refugee support work, including Reading Power. I've learned about composting and recycling. I would work on the church fair, and I would help with church raffle quilts forever, because those are practical ways to be of use in the world. And I choose to do it all here, because this is where I meet people who also do good in the world.
Who we are and why we meet. Good morning. I'm Alec Keeling, a father, a husband, a son, a brother, an uncle, a teacher, an extrovert, a perfectionist, and a Reformed Methodist.
I'm Kevin Keeling. I'm a father, a husband, a son, a brother. What else am I? I'm a friend, a lover of cats and dogs. I used to be a social worker, and now I'm also a recovering Catholic.
Also, we're gay. Or, as our kids would describe us, super gay. We sing, we dance, I quote old movies. Kevin does cross-stitch.
As a family of 4 with 3 additional 4-legged family members, we're also super busy. karate, boxing, flag football, trombone, clarinet, Zumba, resource speakers for the Home for Little Wanderers, PTO, Committee on Ministry, RE teaching, the choir.
It could drive a person crazy. It could drive a person mad.
Which, believe it or not, is why we meet with you all here, because nobody signs up people more than Unitarian Universalists. All kidding aside, I had very personal reasons for finding a church. Growing up Catholic, there was a lot of prescription to religion and not a lot of acceptance for who I was, for who I loved, or for what I think. For a long time as a young adult, I didn't attend any religious services except for weddings and funerals. But I felt like I was missing out on something, a bigger picture, a sense of community. So as a single person, I started attending the Arlington Street Church in Boston. It spoke to me in many ways. For example, when Reverend Kim found out I had been raised Catholic, she urged me to come late, to leave early, and to walk around during the service. It was an introduction to a sense of freedom and a feeling of being welcomed as a whole person, inclusive to all my identifiers. Fast forward. I meet this crazy teacher, an extrovert with a condominium out in Hudson, Massachusetts. The relationship grows into a marriage. The condo disappears and becomes a suburban home in Woburn, much more convenient to work with more bedrooms and hallways, which we eventually hope will echo with paws and small feet. Spoiler alert, that's exactly what happens. But before the feet and paws, I decide I'd like to find a church. Somewhere welcoming, not only to me, but to my husband and to the little feet we're hoping for. So because my husband likes options and I'm good at research, I dutifully make a list, which starts with the Unitarian Universalist Church of Reading.
You might be surprised to know that I wasn't completely on board with finding a church. Years prior to meeting Kevin, I'd gone through a relationship breakup that I found so torturous, especially in combination with my own parents' divorces and remarriages, that I made a concerted effort to build a full, single-person social life, which included spending Sunday mornings worshiping at the house of Zumba and step aerobics, followed by social activities. Who needs church when there's so many places to meet friends for brunch? I told you, super gay. But I was still a new enough newlywed, where if it was important to my husband, it was important to me. And as an elementary school teacher with high hopes of being a parent, I recognized the need my future children would have to be part of a welcoming, supportive environment that didn't just accept them, but supported them in who they were and who their family is. A refuge, if you will, that could be depended upon when other parts of their world were cruel. So one beautiful Sunday morning in June, we skipped brunch and came here to a beautiful flower service, the end of a church year, but a beginning for us. We never did make it to any of the other churches on the list, and our reasons for staying here multiplied. Many of them are sitting looking at me right now, in pews or on screen. Right away, we began to build relationships, sitting in the choir, helping at the KK fair, attending events, serving on committees, working with RE. These were all single strands that, given enough time, enough good conversations, enough sharing of ideologies with all of you, plaited themselves into an incredibly strong braid, one strong enough to hold on to as we face the joys and heartbreak of the world's longest adoption, losses within our own family, triumphs and disappointments on the world stage. A staff that knows you and is willing to lead during hard times. Fellow congregants who love, support, challenge, and grasp hands. Pitfalls and all, it's better than any brunch I've ever had. And that's why we meet, because you make us feel like we matter, and we hope that our family is doing the same for you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Alec and Kevin. Their stories illustrate the breadth and the depth of support this church provides and the meaning it has for many people. Although I have to say, Alec and Kevin, I was disappointed in your draft. I thought you were going to sing part of that, but I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't because I didn't know quite how I was going to follow on that one. So how did my family, Ann and I, and our 3 children, Julie, Joe, and Amy, get here and become members of UUCR? We began attending UUCR in 1974 after attending the Morristown, New Jersey Unitarian Universalist Fellowship for 6 years. There, our minister was Clark Olson, who provided leadership for 2 Sundays a month. In our congregation of about 50 initially, and growing to over 300 before we left, created and led the services for the remaining 2 weeks of the month. When we joined UUCR in 1974, again a congregation of about 50 individuals at that time, Dick Woodman was our minister in a traditional New England Unitarian Universalist church, a very different experience from the Morristown UU Fellowship. Our kids attended, and Ann and I taught in the RE programs. In the almost 50 years we've belonged to this church, Ann and I have participated on a variety of committees, helped put on services, and been involved in a variety of other ways. And during this time, we've experienced 5 settled ministers in this church. In my perspective, looking back, has grown in both numbers and scope of religious, spiritual, and social consciousness and activism. Dick Woodman, our minister in 1974, was followed by Jane Jepka, Robin Zucker, Tim Kutzmark, and Hank Pierce as settled ministers, with interim ministers serving for a year or 2 between each of them. Over these years, while membership numbers have increased and decreased from time to time, this church and its ministry has expanded in reach and vitality in ways we have, and in many ways, we have grown our commitment to the 7 UU principles and our sense of purpose and meaning as a congregation. Ann and I, together with many of you, have experienced many wonderful and meaningful ups and a few difficult downs for our church over these years. But over this time, we found that this congregation shares a very broad framework of responsibility for ministering. That's, to me, a core critical principle in how this church functions. Encompassing and directly involving both minister and congregants, this approach and principle has enabled our church to not just survive, but grow in many important and discernible ways over these years. While we meet in who we are, the title of this service touches on what brought Ann and I to become UUs and why we continue to belong to this specific church. Today, there are an amazing number of young, and some not so young, people that make UUCR a place where we can individually and collectively continue to explore ideas and words in the context of spirituality, soul, sanctuary, and togetherness. I believe that's who we are, have been, and will, in my opinion, very likely continue to be as UUCR. I ask you to think about whether you agree.
Our congregation exists and thrives through the gifts of those who call this place their spiritual home. If you are here with us in the sanctuary, you may put your gift in the collection plate as it goes by. Otherwise, you may make a gift online or send a check. Thanks to Michelle and Beth for passing the plate. Please give as generously as you are willing and able to our Share the Plate offering to support Reading Power and the mission of UUCR. If this is your first time with us, your presence here is gift enough.
Morning with the golden light on. Good morning. I'm Melissa Martin, your Member Services and Volunteer Coordinator. And I was enjoying babies, so I apologize for the delay. I would like to extend a sincere thank you to Tom for leading today's service, and to Suzanne, Alec, Kevin, for highlighting the many ways this congregation exemplifies the essence of spirituality, soul, sanctuary, and togetherness. Thank you, Allison, Astrid, Robin, Cameron, Mary, Trevor, and Choir for your contributions to this beautiful service as well. This is the final week with Side with Love's 30 Days of Love, which ends on Valentine's Day. And this week's resources focused on the intersections between the spiritual theme of resilience and Side with Love's work on supporting climate justice. They also share a few bonus days that include the ideas of blessings and liberatory intersections. And they include this reflection by Reverend Ashley Horan, who shared, at its core, the work of Side with Love is to be a hub of connection, growth, nourishment, and action that allows Unitarian Universalists and our partners to live out our values in the world. Together, we deepen our political analysis, sharpen our skills, articulate our theological grounding, and mobilize our communities to build a world in which all of us are free and thriving. We at UUCR are so grateful to be in the work of love and liberation together with you. Also, a note about our larger world, as shared in this week's update. As members of the global community, we are all stirred to action as we watch the unfolding damage in Turkey and Syria following the earthquake earlier this week. If you're looking for somewhere to donate funds in response to this crisis, the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee recommends 2 aid organizations as trustworthy partners: the International Rescue Committee and the Fund for Global Human Rights. Links for these organizations can be found in our newsletter. For this week at UUCR, we have 3 opportunities for tomorrow, Monday, February 13th. In addition to our Buddhist meditation session that's on Zoom, we also have our second Monday of the month offering a virtual social crafty fun drop-in from 7 to 9 p.m. And also beginning at 6 p.m., you're invited to a special opportunity examining the history of the UU Urban Ministry and its mission to work across race and place to dismantle racism and white supremacy culture and to advance racial, social, and economic justice. The UU Urban Ministry recently commissioned a study on race and enslavement at the First Church in Roxbury. This report tells the story of at least 58 human beings, Black and Indigenous men, women, and children, who were enslaved by First Church's white parishioners. The report on Monday will be by Abid Alahai and UU Ministries Executive Director and Senior Minister, Reverend Mary Margaret Earle, who will be preaching here on Sunday, April 2nd, and a historian, Byron Rushing. And you can find the link for this in our newsletter. It's a virtual presentation. On Wednesday, join Conversation with Nancy Nienhuis at 1 p.m. via Zoom. Next Sunday, Reverend Laurel will be back and leading service, and friends who are new to UCR are invited to join her and I for a casual meet and greet after service. Looking ahead, please join us on Sunday, March 5th, as we kick off our pledge drive season and a special social hour celebration. And save the date for our evening sanctuary, Starlight Soiree auction, a beloved social occasion and an important fundraiser. We'll be back here on Saturday, March 25th, beginning at 6 p.m. If you have an item that you'd like to donate, please email Drew Wood-Beckwith for live auction items and email Liz Lovell for silent auction or sign-up items. And finally, please mark your calendars for our April book drive to benefit the nonprofit organization More Than Words. The kickoff will be on Earth Day, Saturday, April 22nd. And in the weeks to come, we will tell you what communications we are able to accept, but start organizing your books to donate now. For today, please stop by on your way out to say hello to worship leaders and friends. And we thank David Adamson for our Zoom social hour. And thank you all for being a vital part of our congregational life. Now, please rise in body or in spirit and sing our closing hymn, number 1028, and the Teal hymnal, The Fire of Commitment.
extinguish the candles, the chalice for families with children, they'll be in Community Hall. Please join me in reciting our chalice extinguishing words as Allison extinguishes our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Before I give the brief benediction, I'd just like to say that it's struck me as this service has come together with enormous help from Allison, that the UU Soul Network's theme, "No one can do church alone," applies in so many different ways. And without the wonderful team that makes this thing happen every Sunday, it just wouldn't happen. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Mary, in particular. No one can do church alone. Together we can find truth and understanding of ourselves and others as we pursue meaning and purpose in life. Goodness, beauty, and truth carry special meaning in our daily lives, and they are vital to our spiritual thinking and needs. May it be so.